Adriana rode silently in the backseat of Mrs. Caney's car. They were on their way to the treasure house. It was supposed to be the greatest weekend that they had had thus far. You see, Adriana had spent many a weekend with Mrs. Caney, especially when her mom had to work out of town. Mrs. Caney had two daughters of her own, and they also had a cousin who was along for the ride. It was a spooky night, but then again, it was a spooky trip. We were all on our way to see one of the greatest haunted houses that this side of the country had ever known. Along the way, I saw that it was quiet and somewhat destitute, but I had always been a horror girl. So was I scared? No, just a little homesick. I guess really missing my mom. I stared out the window and up into the air. I looked all around, up into the trees, out the window, everywhere, to take my mind off of how much I just wanted to go home. Initially, I loved going places with Mrs. Caney, but now I just want to be in my bed. I looked to the left of me and saw that Mrs. Caney's daughters were asleep. Nothing out of the usual there. They were usually bored, always leaning on the side of lackluster. Mrs. Caney was a fun lady, so I can't take that from her. But again, I just want to go home. Finally, after some driving down what seemed like the longest road I have ever been on in my life, we arrived at what looked like a castle. Mrs. Caney's daughters, Alicia and Tana, sat up straight in their seats when they saw this castle. "Whoa," said Alex. This was supposed to be a fun and slightly spooky type of haunted house, but this is straight up frightening. This is the biggest, scariest, castliest castle I've ever seen in my life. "Here," said Mrs. Caney. "Isn't it stunning? This castle is almost 600 years old. It's one of the oldest buildings that we have for miles. Everyone get ready, grab your bags. We're getting ready to go inside." Inside, I thought? Grab our bags, I thought? I just know we're not staying here for the night. I thought we were going to a haunted house and then maybe to a hotel. Why are we grabbing our bags? I said. The girls didn't say a word. They just looked from the castle to me to one another. "Oh no, silly. This is the hotel. It's an all-in-one experience. You get a haunted house, you get a hotel, you get an all-you-can-eat buffet full of the most delightful, spooky snacks that you could all want, cookies and cakes, and all of that delicious, tasty food. I've been here a few times myself. So we're all just going to get ready to go in and have the weekend of our life. I know it's been a little boring and I know you miss your mom. So I decided for us to do something to take our minds off of all that's been going on. Trust me, it's not as bad as it looks. It's going to be fun." I took a deep breath. Fun. Now I really want to go home. Mrs. Caney was right. Once inside, it wasn't too bad. It was much brighter on the inside of the house than it was outside. There were huge windows and tapestry. The wall was made of masonry, some type of brick or cobblestone. I wouldn't know, but it was beautiful and grand, like a princess used to live here. I hadn't been struck by much, but this was beautiful. I almost couldn't imagine it being someplace spooky. As we walked through the grand hall, I looked around. There was very minimal decorations. The walls itself stood out. As we got closer to our destination, the voices got louder and louder, and I heard kids laughing, joking. I even heard what sounded like running. And my excitement grew. Maybe this would be fun after all. As we came upon the end of the hall, two huge double doors sat perched open, and inside was like what I would call a huge dining room. There were at least 10 really long tables covered in white tablecloths. And in the center was food of all sorts. There was even a dessert table. Mrs. Caney was definitely telling the truth about snacks of all sorts. There was cookies and pies and muffins and cakes, candies and ice cream. It was almost unbelievable. I started wondering how much she paid for this, or maybe my mom paid for this. It had to be expensive. Mrs. Caney looked at us and told us not to eat ourselves silly. She said, enjoy yourselves and eat well, but she doesn't want to deal with any upset stomachs. I laughed a bit. There was no need for her to tell me this. The girls and I found a spot at a table that was closer to the entrance. Alex had ran off somewhere with some boys that he met over at the dessert table. He hadn't even had dinner yet. The girls and I sat quietly. Alicia had always been the talkative one, but today she was quite quiet. Alicia, are you okay? Yeah, she said, I'm fine. I asked what was wrong. Why was she so down? She said, I think I'm just tired from the trip. I didn't expect for us to be driving so long and so far. And honestly, I don't like being in the middle of the woods. It kind of creeps me out. I looked to Tana for some input, and she grinned. One of her most sinister grins. You want to hear a scary story? I looked at her and I said, sure, why not? We're here. Tana sat up straight as a board, and she looked at us and said, years ago, there were 4 sisters. They lived on the outside of town. They practiced magic, all sorts of magic. One day, the youngest sister fell in love with the man from the town. But there was a woman there who already loved him. So the woman conspired, and she followed them one night. When she came upon the sister's house, they were inside casting spells. Struck, the woman ran back to town and told everyone what she saw. And of course, they had the witches hung. The last thing that the youngest sister said before her death was, I will get you and all of your kin. Thank you guys for listening to part 1 of my first ever, I guess, vlogged or video recording of my stories. I love to write. I write often, and I also have published a children's book. My children also love to write, so they will also be participating in the storytelling, or at least helping to write the stories. So we will be flooding the timeline with these stories over the rest of Vlogtober. Again, this was just the first part. This is going to be a 3-part story. So thank you for listening. I hope you guys like it. We will be doing this as a part of our homeschool day, just so that we can work on our writing and just, I guess, share it, because, we like to share what we do. So thank you guys for being here. Let us know how you like it down in the comments, and we will see you guys tomorrow for Vlogtober Day 3. Peace.